They mentioned that at the start of Season 2, we will be getting balance adjustments. This is going to be character buffs and also characters nerfs, with Tressa and Cassius being mentioned by name. I've actually stalled making this for so long for no real reason that we have the projected date for the balance notes coming out, which is going to be on 1/26. And Smilegate does have another gotcha game, Epic 7, so this is going to be taking a quick look at Epic 7 and how they handle nerfs over there to see if we can really just get a sense of when they decide to nerf. It's not going to be exactly the same because these are two different games, of course, but this is just their general philosophy with nerfs. We're going to take a look at when do they nerf, how often it happens, and what compensation do we get for any nerfs. First things first, we have to quickly go over just Epic 7 in general. There's two different rarities between units besides just like, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. There's also elemental rarities because fire, ice, and earth units are a lot more common to get. They're much, much easier to get. Light and dark units are a lot harder to get. So the difference in compensation, at least at the start of the game, is a thing just because of the rarities. And then these little icons here with the gold borders, these are partners. Yeah, they're Epic 7 equivalent of partners. Epic 7 itself is a PvP turn-based game, so Summoner's War is pretty much the direct comparison. PvP is relevant because if something is broken, you're going to have to play against it. It's not something where it's only going to affect the PvE portion. You will have to fight the annoying stuff too. And then, also, if anyone's played Honkai Star Rail, not a PvP game, but it does have turn-based stuff. So that's just an example for anybody who hasn't played Epic 7. Let's talk about compensation first. So what compensation do we get for characters getting nerfed? At the very start of the game, your compensation would be you get all your resources that you invested into the character back. So you recall the character, you get them back at level 1, and you get any sort of combatant EXP. I'm going to use CZN turns. Any sort of combatant EXP, you'd get it back in the form of whatever, like gold, blue, gray. You'd also get any potential materials that you spent on the character back. That'd be the gems, that'd be the weekly materials, plus the little like eye card thing. You would also get any promotion materials you spent. Same thing with partners, you get the promotion materials, the EXP that you spent. And then what about duplicates? For Epic 7, we have universal currencies that can increase the dupe value of any character or any partner. So it's basically, it's just the ego. Like, I don't know if they're going to have that for CZN, but that's what we get for Epic 7. And then at the start, for partners and RGB heroes, RGB is Fire, Ice, and Earth heroes, or Light Dark heroes that were 3-star, all you would get for the nerf is just that stuff that I mentioned. For Light Dark heroes that were 4 or 5-star, though, on their nerfs, you would get a selector, and you can pick any other Light or Dark hero that had been released already. Later on in the game's lifespan, though, all the way down here, they started making it so that if they ever nerfed a Fire, Ice, Earth 5-star, you would also get a hero selector, and of course you can't select Light and Dark units, it would only be for the base 3 elements. So, how often do they nerf? Not very. Like, this is the very start of the game. The game launched in 2018, and there was quite a few, like, nerfs up until, I would say up until end of 2019, pretty much, and then there starts being, like, pretty big gaps between the nerfs, and not all of these are, like, very significant nerfs either. Some of these are, like, bug-related, or just system changes. There's really not a lot of nerfs. Like, the first case of Smilegate nerfing things is when something is just completely dominating the meta, and it has to be an absurd level of broken too, because we've had a lot of very strong units that just don't get nerfed. Normally they opt to let them slowly get power crept, or they'll release units that are strong into those units, like create the problem, sell the solution kind of thing. CZN's been kind of slow in power creep so far, and it's also a PvE game, so it's a bit different, but for like, this character is too strong, we have to nerf them nerfs. There is a really big gap from end of 2019 to late 2022, or we'll just say 2022 because these are also technically included. And then since then, besides one little oopsie over here, there's not really anything. So they really don't like nerfing characters that much because of how generous the compensation is. Like, especially this, I think the selector part is the part that really trips them up, because getting all of your resources back is kind of whatever. I don't think it really like bothers them that much. So just a couple of examples of why these things were too strong. These three here are very relevant. This is Tieria, Elsa, and Ricarus. This was the Trinity back in the good old days. And their whole thing was that they just did everything. Like, they did damage, they gave you boosts so you would take your turns faster, they healed, they buffed your damage, they buffed your defense, they decreased the enemy's defense. It was just literally everything, or just about everything that you could do in Epic 7. The three of them would do it in combination, and these are all 3 stars. It's the technically second lowest rarity, because we can also... You'll see some like weird little monsters here. These are actually just, yes, they're monsters. They're 2 stars. But for heroes, these are the lowest rarity, 3 stars. And this is kind of familiar. It's like the Tressa, Cassius, Mika, pretty much, where the 3 of them in CZN obliterate everything. These 3 were doing it in Epic 7, and these got nerfed pretty fast. Other nerfs are stuff like this character here. There's that mob in Blue Pot with Smear Poison that has a chance to just get extra turns if you let it act. There's a lot of stuff in Blue Pot that just acts a ton. Or if anyone's played Summoner War, the Violent Rune, I think it was called, she had that, so she got nerfed in part because of that. Especially early on in the game when like mechanics were a lot simpler, damage was a lot lower, bulk was a lot lower. Some characters were just unkillable and dealing way too much damage back to you, so they got nerfed for that. Or like this combination, this partner plus character combination got nerfed just because they killed everything and you couldn't really stop it. There has also been like PvE nerfs before too, where something like Epic 7 has a debuff that deals damage to the enemy. It's like Agony, but imagine if Agony dealt a percentage of the enemy's max HP as damage, 5% of their max HP, so 20 procs, and they're just instantly dead. These two, and especially this little guy over here, were way too good at applying the debuff and extending the debuff, or detonating it. So, yeah, pretty fast nerfs came in, especially for this guy. But like I mentioned, there's a really big jump in, like, from 2019, this guy was unkillable while dealing damage. 2019 all the way over to April 2022, and this is kind of an oopsie because they accidentally made 2-star mobs tied for the fastest speed in the entire game with actual kits that worked pretty well for being 2 stars. Like, they were actually good units, and you couldn't like pre-ban them because they're 2 stars. So this was a quick little oopsie. And then for characters, it's just her. She just dealt way too much damage at the time. She would kill absolutely anything, and she got nerfed because of that. But it's a 3-year gap. Like, even if you count these guys, it's still like a 3-year gap. And after that, we only have a second oopsie here, where this character had the ability to essentially never die in certain situations with a specific artifact / partner. And this is when people were discovering that there's actually a 30-minute timer on real-time PvP matches, because you just couldn't kill her. People would go like make lunch or something, and just, yeah. So this had to get nerfed. This was kind of an oopsie though, more than the character just actually being too strong, because she could just infinitely stall out matches until the timer ran out. So that's the first case. Just when something is so absurdly strong, they have to nerf them. This is like the Tressa Cassius. I think there's a couple other characters in CZN that might warrant this, though I don't know if they'll actually go about doing it. The second reason is problematic systems, and this has a little bit of overlap with something being super broken, but it's not necessarily something that has to be strong. If something is annoying to play against or problematic to design around, they'll nerf stuff sometimes too. So a couple of examples of this. This character here, Auxiliary Lots, he was not really broken or anything, but if you gave him a specific artifact, he would be able to spam this one ability every single turn. And for anyone who's played Honkai Star Rail, it's Bronya. It's Bronya's skill. You push the character all the way up to take their turn, and you could run a character at base speed, full damage, run him just slightly slower than them, and then you would basically be able to take 2 turns every single time that character moved, and you would attack buff them. Characters were not meant to do that in PvE, and he got nerfed because of it. It wasn't really a big loss, just because it was a really niche strat in the first place, also very expensive because you needed a specific artifact completely maxed out, and the places that he was used wasn't really, like, he wasn't really used anywhere. It was just really niche situations. So you'll ask, like, why even bother nerfing him then? That's the problematic system thing, I would say. I think it's just annoying to design around, and this is already happening in CZN, where Malin's Rising Dragon's Fire, one-shotting everything, we have elasticity on everything. That's why I think Malin probably should be nerfed, though I don't think they'll do it because they don't want to give out the compensation for nerfing a 5-star. And Malin's, like, Rising Dragon's Fire nerf with elasticity is hitting other characters too. Like, Renoa is getting hit by it, Luke is getting hit by it. They're just kind of caught in the crossfire with this Rising Dragon's Fire targeted nerf. We've seen this happen in other places too. Like, for the second Great Rift, when they nerfed upgrades, having duplicate upgrades with the same name, Beryl got hit by that. Like, they changed elasticity so opening found works against it, but then in that same Great Rift, you couldn't use Beryl in the second part because she uses upgrades. In Tower, she's not affected by that, but Tower does have the new thing where you can't generate too many cards, which could affect future units. So this is what I mean by problematic systems. It's just stuff where they have to start putting in stuff like elasticity, which is not only going to hurt that unit, but hurt other units as well. And there's an example of this still, where there's this one character that deals a ridiculous amount of damage, and every single time they do PvE content for this one game mode, they have to remember to just make sure she can't work and it's hitting some other units at the same time. Another one is pretty much like extra turns. The Smear Poison, Violent Rune thing. Like, these 2 artifacts here had the ability to stack extra turns on each other, making, especially this one, was really, really good with certain characters that already had extra turns, because you would be able to take up to 4 turns at once, potentially. So this got nerfed just because it's annoying. Like, they were releasing a character that was really, really strong, that had extra turn on a pretty low cooldown, so warranted nerf, even if, like, of course, because you could take so many extra turns, it was going to be, like, best in slot, but even if it's, like, not, like, this one was good, this one not so much, oops, and this one, like, here got nerfed just as part of the system nerf because it's annoying, it's, like, not fun to play against. They've also kind of nerfed things for no good reason sometimes. I'm not going to go super into it, but that's these 2 here. These 2 are, like, free artifacts, though, so they didn't really have to give out much compensation for it. Also, sometimes when they rework things, they'll give out recalls for that, too. Like, this one's the only case of a character getting a rework and then getting a recall, because typically when they rework stuff, it's all, like, they're trying to buff it. They're trying. Some units don't get used at all and they rework it. Sometimes it doesn't work, but they're always trying to buff, so they won't really hand out recalls. There are some cases, though, where they just completely change the entire use case of an artifact, and then in that case, we do get recalls. We did get recalls for these 2. So those are pretty much, that's the compensation that we get. It's just all of your resources, potentially a selector. I think if they nerf, like, because of how hard it is to get characters in CZN, if they nerf Malin, like, significantly, people will probably be demanding a selector. Definitely, for sure, you're getting all of your resources back. I would expect for Tressa and Cassius that we get all of our resources back for that. They've also mentioned, like, save data editing ticket, and this is just because, like, you already farmed out your save datas, and they said they want to give you, like, a way to sort of fix those in case they nerf a character or buff a character, or now you need a different save. But this is kind of just taking a look at how it's been done in the past. Again, different games, so it's not going to be the exact same, but that's more or less what I'm expecting for compensation and who gets nerfed. I think Malin definitely needs a cap on Rising Dragon's Fire, but I don't think they'll actually do it because they don't want to give out compensation.